Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining our live stream today. We have a very special one today. We want to honor Women History Month, and what better way to do it than to use our platform to give voice to other women to speak up and share their experiences. So we have a list of panelists that will be helping us today. I will introduce you to them in a second. I just wanted to explain a bit how the dynamics is gonna go today. So we have this panel for about 45 minutes, and then towards the end, we will open up the conversation so you can also join. So in order to do that, if you're joining from Big Marker, we have this Q&A chat, and I'm gone from there. Give me a sec so I can fix that. There I am. Okay, that's fixed. So if you're joining from Big Marker, you can use the Q&A tab. And also you can use the chat if you want to discuss with each other. If you're joining from YouTube, you can simply put it on the chat. I also want to thank my colleague David, who is in the background. He will be helping me moderate the questions and also help you interact with each other. So without further ado, we are with Emily Teague. She's a portrait and fashion photographer. We have Tracey Woods. She's the director of photography at the Luupe. And we have Cannava as well, joining as a digital technician. And me, you maybe already know me. I'm Alex. I'm the product training manager at Capture One. And I'm very happy today to be moderating this panel. So welcome, everybody. How are you all doing today?
Wonderful.
Really,
Thank you for having
really
me.
Good.
We're actually all joining from New York City, where we have a really beautiful day. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourselves? Maybe you can start, Tracey.
Sure. My name is Tracey Woods, and as you said, I'm the director of the photography. I'm director of photography of the Luupe. So the Luupe is a platform dedicated to empowering and promoting women and non-binary creators. So we started out with just photographers and then directors. Now we are inclusive of all crew. So that includes assistants, hair and makeup artists, stylists, set builders, whoever is involved in helping a photographer or director create that photo or video shoot. We are really we're making them part of your loop, so to speak. We also provide opportunities for creators to showcase their talents to brands and also with each other. It's a community, and our mission is to challenge the traditional norms in this industry and amplify the voices of marginalized creators. So by that, we want to foster a more inclusive and equitable landscape within the photography community and just creative community in general.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. So beautiful to have you here today. Maybe you want to go next, Lori?
Sure. I'm Cannava. I am a digital tech based out of Brooklyn. And I'm very excited to be here. I love Capture One. It's one of the best programs and the only program in my personal life and world, but I'm very happy to be here with all these fantastic women.
Great. How about you, Emily? Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Teague. I'm a photographer based in Brooklyn. I shoot a mix of portrait, fashion, and documentary work. I'd say my work is very inspired by my travels. I've been to about 30 countries around the world, always shooting in every country that I go to. I'm also very inspired by cinema, nostalgia, color, and most recently I've been diving into really exploring vulnerability and play through creating safe spaces with whoever's in front of my camera.
Beautiful. So how long have you all been in the photo business, and how did you end up here? Was it something you always knew you wanted to do, or how did you get looped in here?
I'll start. I have a MFA in photography. My background was more fine art, and I was still, when I graduated from school, was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Besides being an artist, because I had, living in New York, you have bills to pay and student loans to pay back. So I dabbled in photo assisting and realized really quickly I didn't like it. And I had the opportunity to become a studio manager for a photographer that I assisted. And when I did that, I realized that was my calling. That's how I learned the business of photography, I've been in this industry probably for over, about 20 years or so. And I've seen it change. And I've worked with photographers, I worked with photo agencies, became a photo editor. So I worked on all sides of the industry and really helped to shape my knowledge of, how to run a photo business, to how to deal with clients. And then I became the client. So it's all facets.
And how about you, Emily?
Yeah, it's been 12 years for me. I started when I was 16, so you guys can do the math. But I started with a 3-day workshop at the Fashion Institute of Technology. It was a gift from my uncle. The class was kind of directed towards high school students. And I remember at that point in my life, I had no idea what I was going to do, but was also very anxious about what on earth I was going to do. And I think at the time I was like, maybe English teacher,
Wow.
and then by the end of that first day of the workshop, I was like, oh, great, I'm a photographer. And it was kind of just decided in that moment, like, well, I'm sure relieved that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I came back to my small hometown in Northern California and started going to all the pretty girls within my high school and being like, will you model for me? And then I think within 6 months of like picking up a camera and becoming very obsessed, I was charging like maybe $25 per shoot just to like my other high school students, and kind of worked my way from portraiture into commercial work, and now kind of dabble back and forth between the two.
Yeah, that's such a cute story. I love it. How about you, Laurie?
Sure. I did not go to school I had the intention to go to school for photography, but got what I call the real degree. But I started photo assisting in the Detroit area in the automotive field, moved to New York and started as a photo assistant, which I loved more than anything. I actually became a digital tech because I was finding it hard to be on sets, especially location sets. Um, just as a woman. Sometimes people weren't hiring me. I'm a big girl. I play sports. I was sometimes getting from both female and male photographers. You can't really be on this set, or you're not a first assistant, just based on what they thought I could do or couldn't. So I had a great photographer who kind of pushed me towards digital. And I was really happy that they did. I did start with kind of more of an interest in arts as well as science. So becoming a person a little more fluent in tech kind of came natural to me, and it opened up a whole new world of people and clients I could work for.
Wow, so it's basically the sexism in the industry that pushed you to where you are today. Isn't it like a little bit like that?
It There was definitely some sexism that when I've been in New York since the early 2000s, and they're both from male and female photographers. There was a time when it didn't make sense in people's minds to have a female on crew. They told me sometimes that I wasn't big enough or strong enough to carry all these packs. And I was very sassy and was like, well, I'm smart enough to get a cart so I can bring them all over at once. Um, but I knew that I wanted to be in this photo industry, and I needed to be able to adapt in order to be here. And when I found an opening, I took it and found out that people listened to me a little bit more. I got to have a little more input. I also had a skill that a lot of people didn't have on set of knowing the photo, as well as this platform of Capture One. And it's a different industry now. A lot more people are comfortable with digital, and they hire me for other reasons now. But I just knew that I wanted to be in New York. I wanted to be in this industry, and took whatever path that I could.
Wow. Okay. So being a female digitech, maybe this is more a question for Emily and Tracey. Actually, I did not typically see a lot of female digitechs on set. So can you share a little bit more, like according to your experience, what's the male to female ratio of digital technicians or in general technical people on set?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. At least for me, I would say 95 to 98% is male. Recently meeting Lori, she's one of about 3 digitechs that I know that are female. So it's rare to find them, and whenever you do, it's really exciting. Just because I like to work with as many women as possible. But yeah, it is rare to find a female digitech for sure.
Yeah, I want to kind of ditto with what you said, that with Emily said, gosh, it's about the same percentage. I think I've probably had maybe a handful of female digitechs and all the jobs that I've worked in, from editorial to commercial jobs. It's a very small number.
Wow, yeah, that's a very high percentage. So, Lori, as a female digitech, what would you say to other women who are trying to maybe start this path in their careers and they don't really know how to do it, or like how do you face your challenges on set? Like, have you ever felt like, maybe also you, Emily, have you ever felt like people are not taking you seriously, like especially at the technical level, which is the kind of skills that are more associated traditionally to males?
So, Emily, did you want to start? Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. You please.
Okay, no problem. So I would just tell people who are looking to do this platform to learn Capture One the best you can. You do amazing work doing tutorials, which I've learned stuff too. Digital, I say in general, has kind of changed. Like I said, photographers, as opposed to 10 years ago, understand digital cameras. Before, when they first handed me, they were still lost. They're coming from a film world. Capture One has made it really easy to connect. So the reason why I'm there is because I have to be perfect with what I do, which is to, number one, never hold up a shoot, never have any digital issue, and to be super organized. So while men are sometimes always seen as tech and girls can't do tech, I know tech, but I make sure to focus on things to kind of make me a little bit more extra desirable, I guess, to a client. And for me, that's being insanely organized and detail oriented. That's learning keystrokes, learning your tools, making sure there's capture plates. You have to be perfect. Because when you present yourself in a way where you are as perfect as possible on this job, then it's just having to work with the vibe of the photographer. There are more clients, both photographers and client facing, that are looking to work with more females. So just kind of going out, present who you are, don't hide behind the fact, but just make sure that you do need to be perfect, because there aren't that many, and we know how easy it is for people to stereotype of, I worked with that girl or that woman who didn't know anything.
No
So
pressure.
again, do the best that you can.
How about you, Emily?
And Alex, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, I was just saying, have you ever felt that people are not taking you seriously, especially at a technical level, because of being a female?
Probably every day. Yeah, absolutely. I think especially if people don't know my work, and they just see that I'm a young female photographer. I know that I'm doubted and underestimated a lot more then, which honestly just pisses me off. And I feel like there's always been this urge to be like, well, great, I'm just going to prove them wrong. And fortunately, that urge is going down less and less as time goes on. I think the best way to respond to that is just with confidence, because I am confident in my work and I know my ability and what I can do. And as far as the technical side goes, whether it's with photography, whether it's with Capture One, I feel very confident there too. And so it's really just kind of looking at whoever is looking at you with doubt, and kind of putting them in their place a little bit, and also just giving them a certain look that's like, well, I know what I'm doing, so kind of check yourself. I feel like that's an important thing to do now and then.
Definitely. And when you decided, like the three of you, when you decided that you wanted to take this path in your life and like start a career in the photo industry, did you feel questioned by the people around you, like your family, your friends?
My immediate family was always supportive of me of whatever I did. So, if I wanted to be a bus driver, they would be happy, as long as I was happy. I think it was older relatives who didn't really understand the photo industry and what that entailed, didn't understand why I would want to do that. They wanted you to have a more traditional career, whether, if it was a nurse, an accountant, just something that was stable. But my parents were 100% supportive of me.
What about you, Lori?
I would say my parents are always supportive, but they were fearful of, I came here when I was in my young 20s, of me working with sometimes men, which meant going to their houses to pick up equipment, to work with other male assistants. They, of course, were just scared overall in New York, but they knew that I was headstrong and that I spoke up. And I think that has been very valuable and kind of put them more at ease of, I became a New Yorker very quick, I guess you could say.
I think for me, it was really split. I feel like my mom was incredibly supportive. I think my friends in high school saw that I was obsessed and were supportive. Unfortunately, I think this is also common coming from a smaller town where it's easier for competition to breed. But yeah, there were a lot of older male photographers who I think as a teenager, I was trying to look up to and be like, great, I'm trying to learn and I'm a sponge. So let's talk about this. And I got the reaction from a lot of them of like, you don't know what you're doing and you're not going to make it. Unfortunately, I think it's really common for women to be put down by older men. And I've experienced that a lot. It was really discouraging, especially when it came from a photographer that I wanted to learn from or that I respected. I also remember an older woman telling me, like, if you don't go to college and you pursue photography, you will end up homeless. So I think I always had that fear in the back of my head, just having it told for me from the time that I was a teenager. And I think I used that a bit as fuel of like, okay, well, I don't want to become homeless, so I'm just going to work as hard as I possibly can and learn everything I can. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of pushback. And I'm grateful for the people like my mom, like my friends who did support me and kind of gave me that reassurance that I was doing what I wanted to do.
I think you made a very valid point here, a very interesting point about your references. Which were your references when you started to learn this business? Who would you look up to, and how many female references did you have?
I think for me, I would say it was probably mostly male, but there were a few female photographers who really took me under their wing in my hometown and who really supported me. One who she would let me borrow her lenses. I remember her letting me borrow an 85 millimeter lens for the first time and being so over the moon about that. There was also a woman who gave me like my first job second assisting when I was shooting weddings. So yeah, there were a lot of, I never got that pushback from women. I felt like they were more willing to extend a hand and tell me how they had learned the ropes than I did with the men in my hometown.
Yeah, I love that you make this point, actually, because I feel like being raised as women, we are learning constantly to be in constant competition with each other. Like, this is what the culture is telling you, this is what I feel the films and the advertising is telling you, just like you have to fight other women. And I wanted to ask you what has been your experience? Have other female professionals in the industry, have they been helpful with you? Have they helped you in your careers, or has it been more like this competitive world?
Did you want to throw that to someone in particular?
Just throwing it out in the air.
I'll throw it out there. I did have an amazing female photographer in Detroit that put me on their wing and kind of pushed me forward and sent me off to New York. I did have a woman that I loved and totally wanted to work for, who I met in person and was like, I would never hire you as an assistant. I would only hire you as a producer. That was hurtful, but in general, I do have to say I didn't run into a ton of that. And I did have other females and continue to have other females, a few other digital techs, other retouchers and assistants that we really focus on spreading out each other's names. And I do try to push some of their names forward first, mainly because they are awesome and I do trust them and have been able to make other relationships with them. So yeah, I do kind of push other women forward as well, almost as kind of like a thank you. And I've had amazing male photographers too, and other men and female photographers who have made it a point now. I think the tone has kind of changed on sets. We're having an all female set is something that you see a little bit more now, and it's celebrated. It's not seen weird, where I kind of get in a sense, well, people didn't want all female crew because maybe that's not what the client want, or they want to get the respect. I think that a lot more industry professionals are making it a point to amplify women and to celebrate a strong female set. And I do have to say, there's something really cool about it being a whole woman crew. It's just like, it's awesome.
Yeah,
I
actually,
remember sorry.
yeah,
Now I
go
was going to
ahead,
say, I
please.
remember the first time I was on when I was working in editorial, and I hired a photographer. We were in LA doing the shoot, and it was an all female crew. And my creative director and I, we were just like beaming. We're like, wait a minute. I didn't pay attention at first because we just had so much to do. And then to have that, it felt great and powerful. And that was what, maybe, 2016. So it's changed a lot considerably, and you're seeing it more and more. I think one thing that the founder of the Loop, Karen Sachs, had said she was kind of tired of hearing her kind of counterparts in advertising saying they couldn't find female photographers, but also there was this competition amongst female photographers. So she wanted to dispel that and really form this community that we could support each other. So it's been really a supportive community that just champions diversity on set and behind the set, like behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, so basically, the Loop is a platform that is based upon the idea of positive discrimination, I guess. Would you put it that way?
I guess I never heard it that way, but yes, it's really just reinforcing that we're here. We do amazing work, and yeah, you should use us and use more of us and make it really. If brands are talking about being inclusive in who they're using, really kind of step up to the plate and take charge and actually do it.
I think that the work that you do is so important because even I've also been working in industry for a while, and I've been sick of hearing, not necessarily at Capture One, actually, I think Capture One is a very inclusive place to work at, not only because of the things we do outside, but also of the way, like in the way things work inside, but in other work experiences I've had, I've always wanted to push female photographers and non-binary photographers, and I've always jumped into this wall of people saying, oh, there's not enough female photographers to feature. And that's obviously not true. They are out there, and we just need to make a better effort to find them. So the Loop making that easier for everybody, I think it's fantastic, and I'm so glad that you're opening it up for other profiles right now. So thank you for the work you do there. So also, the work you do at the Loop, you're trying to make it more diverse, you're trying to make it more inclusive for the people who are behind the cameras. But I also wanted to tap into the sexism in front of the camera. So what happens when you are a model? What happens when you are the talent? So models, I think it's not a secret that they are very often objectified, and they are often victims of really bad sexism. So how do you navigate that on set? What do you do when you're witnessing these practices?
I'm lucky enough that I haven't experienced it on set. I think brands have to be more inclusive in who they're hiring, because part of that is you have the objectification, but you also have there needs to be more inclusivity in who you're hiring. So, and it starts from the brands, because a brand goes to a photographer, or an agency hires a photographer to do something. They have very specific specs, and sometimes the specs are performative. They're like, I have to tick this box. It's like, I need a white female model, a black model, Asian. You're hitting all these different ethnic backgrounds or gender identities. And I think we kind of have to do away with that in some way. I don't know if we can do away with it completely, but I long for the day where it's a model casting and it's not based on a specific gender or ethnicity, but it's just based who's great for the job. Okay, I need a bunch of 20-something-year-old models, and who's right for this role. We have male and female or non-binary wardrobe, and we're going to see who looks best together on set. And it doesn't matter, like the casting call is everyone's going for the same thing, not like, if you're as a Black female and I'm going for casting and I see everyone that looks like me, we're all going for the same roles. Does that make sense?
I think it does make a lot of sense, and you touch this topic of tokenization, which is, I think, so common not only in the photo industry these days, but also in the film industry. So what are your experiences on set, Lori, Emily, with models, and how do you think we can increase the presence of non-heteronormative models and diversify the representation without falling into this tokenization?
I mean, I would say one thing is just, if it's a portfolio shoot, especially where you actually have more of a choice than you do if it's a commercial shoot where you're being kind of put into a situation, here's the setup that you have. I think requesting more diverse models is really helpful, and letting agents know specifically that that's what you're looking for your portfolio is one step to go about that.
So do you ever get a say in commercial shoots? Like, do you have casting choices? Do you have any power there at all?
I would say it's split. I think there's times where, depending on the client, if they trust me and they're hiring me because they really want it to look like my work, they might give me a little bit more power, and they might give me some options and say, hey, these are the 4 or 6 options that we're looking at. And when that happens, I'm thrilled. That makes me really happy. But a lot of the times I am walking onto a shoot and it's kind of like, okay, here's our model, here's our setup, and I really don't have as much of a say. And so in those situations, I think it's always helpful to kind of suggest things to the client while also reminding yourself that you are kind of walking this line of being a service provider.
Right. So we covered behind the lens, we covered in front of the lens, and I also wanted to tap into the topic of retouch. I don't know if you retouch yourself, Emily?
I used to. I've recently gotten away from it. So I started retouching actually before I even became a photographer. I had found Lightroom back in the day as a 15-year-old. I didn't make the switch to Capture One until I was about 22 or so. And so I got really, really into retouching early on, and I started working full-time as a retoucher at an e-commerce company. So I was doing like 50-hour work weeks retouching, and then I would come home. I was also freelancing for a couple newspapers at the time, a magazine, and also doing my own portraiture work. So this was in the time when my schedule was really, really busy. And back then, for an example of retouching that can feel inappropriate, let's say, I remember a portrait client coming to me and being like, hey, I'd really like you to take me down like 3 sizes. Is that possible? And I feel like that's a tricky situation because you can kind of edge that client along the lines of like, well, you look amazing. Like we don't need to change anything. And I'm happy to make little adjustments too. Again, you are providing a service, right? And at the same time, does it reflect your work? Does it reflect your ethics? I feel like most of the time when those kind of clients are coming, they will make comments throughout the shoot saying what their expectations are. So that's a really good time to jump on that and kind of catch them and catch yourself and be like, there's certain things that I can do, but retouching only goes so far. And I really just try to set those expectations. And I'm glad that the trend in the industry has been that less retouching is becoming more wanted. I think we've gone from like early, let's say mid 2000s, where plastic skin was really desirable to, detail in skin texture is becoming more desirable. So that makes me happy.
Have you ever encountered a situation working for a commercial client where you were retouching and they really push your ethical limits, and how have you resolved that situation?
I feel honestly it's been less on the commercial side, just because I feel like there's more of an idea of what can and should not be done in that situation, as much as it is on the portrait side, where I feel like those are the clients that are really pushing it, like, well, let's go as far as we can, and kind of setting those expectations. But at least on the commercial side, I haven't run into a ton of issues yet.
Is there anything you want to add here, Lori? Sorry, I've kept you a little bit quiet.
I am a retoucher as well, and I have definitely had some opportunity where beauty, where it's unreasonable, some of the things that they ask, but I kind of like to take it more of a broad scope of what we're doing is still art. And when I work for someone else, it has already been workshopped and figured out and gone through an agency where you do kind of have a chance where you just have to deliver the product that they're asking for. But I do love and celebrate, of course, when the Dove came out with their ads showing natural women of all shapes and sizes and orientations. It's really kind of, I've thankfully come to a point with my job where if there is a client I don't agree with, I can politely pass on certain work and really push forward and amplify the brands that are doing amazing work. And I'm sure your viewers have seen in different beauty brand stores or even drugstores where they're making a point to say this image isn't retouched at all. And as a retoucher as well, I'm not scared of my job going away. So I think this is a great thing, but I also know that retouching is also another art form. And sometimes you want to create something that's not there. But I do love the brands, especially beauty brands, that push forward with amplify, don't hide. So
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Right.
And I think what you do is so important. Like, we are creating images, we're putting them out in the world, and those are the references for the girls growing up now. And for the not so girls, really, like, even if you think about it, I think even as an adult, you're still absorbing all of these tendencies, and you are going to be affected by the beauty standards that the industry is setting up, both like photo, film, advertising. All of these industries really shape our minds. So I think that's a super positive trend. I wanted to ask you also some of your more like, we've been talking about your experiences and how you see things going forward, but I also wanted to ask you about some of your personal experiences in the industry. I'm not really sure how this works as a freelancer, and the photo business is really freelance based, but it's very common in other industries that when you are a female and you're trying to get a job, you're going to get these questions asked, like personal questions like, what is your plans for the future? Do you have kids? Do you want kids? Do you want to start a family? Have you ever faced something like that?
I haven't. And I've worked in for magazines for a long time. So I worked in a corporate environment, but I find that they were always very supportive and not they legally with HR if they ask certain questions, personal questions, but I haven't had that experience at all. And even on like photo sets when I went, left editorial and started working, it was just, it's just part of, I guess, life. Like if if I do want to start a family, that's my business. It has nothing to do with the job that I do.
Of course, and it's a question that no one would ask a male counterpart, obviously. So that's a trick. How about you, Emily?
mm-hmm.
I haven't been asked about family and kids. I can think of one time in the past couple of years, I was doing a CEO shoot for what became an ongoing client. But that first phone call we had where we were kind of getting to know each other, he was being really charming, which is great. But it also has that line that you can very easily cross. And I remember him being like, so do you have a boyfriend in New York? And I was so taken aback that there was just a silence on the phone where I kind of wanted him to reflect on what he was saying for a second and realize how inappropriate it was. And I remember being like, no, is that relevant? And I said it in a really tongue-in-cheek way, kind of a joking way, where he laughed and I laughed, but we also recognized like this really isn't a necessary question to ask me. And for the most part, it was fine after that. But I would say that's the closest that been asked to one of those questions. Unfortunately for me, I think it was only that one time that I was asked that.
How about you, Lori? Any experiences that you want to share in this regard?
There's definitely more sexual harassment that happened when I was a photo assistant with other male assistants, sometimes photographers. So the great thing about switching to being a digital tech, which definitely made it part of it too, is when I became a tech, a lot more things are in carts. You get to sit down, and the questions about your physical abilities kind of melted away, and a level of respect kind of came a little bit, along with the job as well, which is what I really appreciated. That I became sub where again I could talk to the clients, I could talk with the photographer and the assistants and communicate a little bit better, and it gave me in some sense a higher level of respect because I had another tool and technique that not everyone on set had. So I do know, of course, other females who have been very pregnant shooting that don't even want help getting up, and I get it. There's still a thing where being a mom is wonderful and you can be a mom and shoot. I just know my friends who are moms who are shooting are making sure that their being a mother is not a reason, or them being pregnant is not a reason why they're not getting a job. They do sometimes push themselves a little bit more to be fine or something like that, because there still is a stigma and a stereotype of people not being able to do things when they're in that condition. So I hope with more women and more forward-thinking people and people champion other women that those issues will be less of a factor and people will learn to kind of mind their own business.
For real, and it's like it feels so unfair to have this pressure, like as you said before, you have to be perfect if you are very pregnant or you have something going on, like you can never let that show because otherwise you're going to be stereotyped, you're not going to land a job, like all of these unrealistic really demands like that men don't even think about, or like I don't think any man in the world ever had this thought like, oh, do I want to be a dad or do I want to be a professional in whatever? So that still shows. And
It's true.
Right? Like I don't think that was ever a problem for any man out there. And I really wanted to roll back a bit with something you said, Emily, which was the thing about inappropriate comments. I have been in the industry for a while too, and I sure did get a lot of inappropriate comments. I got a lot of awkward situations that I did not cause. How do you handle this on the everyday, like not the obvious sexism that you can speak up against, but the not so obvious things like these comments, the gaslighting, the mansplaining? How do you handle it? How do you respond to these things?
For me, I've developed a certain kind of stare that I am utilizing more and more. And it's where you don't say anything in response and you stare the guy in the eyes and you raise your eyebrows slightly and you smile just a little bit and you give them time to, and it's worked a few times. I've had men actually pause and be like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. And so it doesn't always happen. Unfortunately, most cases it doesn't happen, but it's happened enough that I'm like, okay, so far this is my most effective tool for you to be able to hopefully be embarrassed by what you say, and for me not to go along in the way that you would have thought that I was going to. So far, it's the stare that's working for me. I'm sure I'll continue to develop that always, but so far that's been good.
I love that because it's like handing them a mirror to look at what they just did and say, and just like give them the 5 seconds to reflect about how inappropriate what they just said was. And I think I also agree with you that that's so much more powerful than responding back. Do you agree?
Oh, I totally agree. And it turns it back on them saying like, oh, did I really just say that? It's like people don't think a lot of times before they speak, and they're like, oh, I was just joking. And it's like, well, no, it was offensive and you shouldn't have really said that. So I love the stare. And it's usually, I think, if that happened to me, it would be the stare and just walk away and ignore them.
How about you, Lori? How do you handle these every day?
So when I'm hired for a job as a digital tech, I'm usually hired by a photographer, and I know that I represent them when I'm on the job. When I've had issues with assistants, more likely in the past, I'd usually try to talk to them first. And there were some times before I wasn't comfortable going to the photographer or a producer. I basically just had to just try to say my piece, stand up for myself, and hopefully it passes. But there were some definite jobs where I was not asked back because when I was supposed to be the first assistant and the second male assistant didn't want to listen to me, they just assumed that I didn't know what I was doing. Thankfully, now I work with photographers that I love and trust who bring on really great crews who are supportive and are looking largely to check themselves. I guess I still haven't found a perfect way to work through all of that. Unfortunately, sometimes it still comes down to a point where you have to decide not to work with that client. And that can be really hard when you are trying to make a living, because I am a freelancer and I don't necessarily have the protections that a normal person would do of going to HR. That being said, if something is really wrong, I would recommend people talking to the producer, talking to the photographer, talking to the person who hired you, and see if they can be an assistant, assist you at all with any of the issues that are coming up. Because I think there is a little bit more of a dialogue and stuff going on, and people are more aware that this is an issue and everyone wants to have a cool set and this is just not to be tolerated. So I would say go to whoever hired you. Good luck.
Yeah, so that's some ways to navigate it. I think it's time to take some questions from the audience. This is not really a question, it's a comment from Naomi, and she's saying, I had a regular client I would shoot for about 4 times a year. After I got pregnant, they told me they were changing it up and switching photographers, but it didn't have anything to do with me being pregnant. Oh, what a sweet coincidence. Well, I hope you found better clients, Naomi, because obviously this wasn't a really good and reliable one, and I'm sure you made it out of there. Okay, so actually a question from David, who is also not only moderating, but listening to us. He's multitasking. So he says, regarding the rise of AI, specifically generative AI that can create imagery from a simple text prompt, what dangers can you see on the horizon for body image and authenticity? Or is there a positive outlook here? That's a big one.
I have so much to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to take it more of this point. Technology always comes. The same people who thought that the world was going to end because photos going away into digital, it turned into these crazy scanner bags to now this beautiful program. So while AI in general makes me want to rip my hair out and scream, be like, oh my God, I know it's coming and there's going to be some great definite benefits for it. Still am a little bit nervous because there are some jobs that I know of that people have lost because they've decided either for photo or video to it's cheaper, just go towards AI. And I hope that there are some beautiful, lovely niche clients that know that people bring a special power to it, and a crew and working together is a different product than what you're getting in the AI. So bring on the AI. We're ready for it, sort of, not really. But I hope that people will continue to see the benefits of hiring women and other creatives to do their work.
Anything you want to add to that, Tracey or Emily?
I would say, I mean, it worries me a lot as a photographer. Also, just as a person, it worries me a lot. You know, we have such a push right now for perfectionism as it is. That I think, Alex, as you were mentioning earlier, young girls and women are seeing constantly, whether it's on social media or anywhere online, really. And yeah, I'm absolutely concerned about what AI is going to mean for that, especially in the case of whether it's fake profiles or models. It just seems like such seems a risky trap that I'm very concerned about. So yeah, nervous about that, but I think the more we can talk about it and also educate people that what we see on real, I think that's really important.
I agree with you, Emily.
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree with oops, I'm breaking up here. Sorry about that. I agree with Emily. I think it's education. It's still continuing the conversation. I think it's just another tool. Like, people thought Photoshop was going to be the end all of everything. And, 20 something years later or 30 years later, it's still here and it's evolving and changing. And yes, it did get away.
It was AI. It
yeah.
wasn't you.
Yeah,
Guys,
heard.
about me. I'm going to show
it's the
you.
machine fighting us. Okay, thank you everybody for staying tuned in. I'm so sorry about that. And we're just wrapping up the panel, talking about AI. I did want to share a comment from Robert Bennett, for all members of the panel. He said that we all have done great things, so that's something to be proud of, and thanks for the nice comment. And yeah, just to wrap it up, there is one other comment from Ninette, who's saying, I am involved in doing group shoots to update our portfolio, and this includes models and makeup artists. I notice more men turning up to photograph and always trying to shoot smutty. I feel this attitude needs to be changed for women to be respected. Yeah, that's definitely a thing, and we are trying to make it better. And I think this comment really ties in really well with my closing question, that I wanted to ask again all of you. So I feel that when we talk about this topic of inclusivity, all the focus is always put on women and how can women be better and how can women get out there and do nice things, which is, yes, something that we need to do. But we are sometimes taking away the focus from men. And also thinking about the men who are watching our live streams today, thank you for joining, by the way. Maybe this is not the most relatable situations to you, but I think it's so important that we are all informed about what's happening in the industry and in society in general. So what would you ask men to consider when working with female professionals, and how can they help us reach an actual equality situation?
And my first thoughts, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, just be helpful, like ask us things directly, speak to us with respect, the same way that we should all speak to every crew member with respect. I think something that I've found a lot in the past couple of years that has been annoying to me is a guy will come to me and he'll say something along the lines of like, well, look, I'm not one to mansplain, but, and then he'll, go on to mansplain. And it's just so, it's really frustrating, especially when it's something that is knowledge that I'm aware of, or they're trying to teach me how to do something I already know. So, I mean, really just be considerate, be kind. We all need to be kind to each other. We should make our jobs more enjoyable. We have the coolest jobs ever, so we might as well make it a good working environment. Just don't make someone feel less than you in any situation, whether that's on set or in your life.
I was going to say pretty much on those same lines. And then I also, it needs to be an allyship. Like, you have to stand in solidarity with us, and also like hire more females for your crew, just period. Like bring in a crew based on their abilities versus, their gender, and don't assume that someone can't do anything because they're female. Like Lori said, people were always saying to her like, oh, she can't carry it, or assuming she couldn't carry the pack or the equipment. You find it's like, yeah, I could do anything that this male assistant can do. Maybe sometimes just think about ways of doing it faster and better as well. So it's really standing in that kind of support and kind of solidarity against discrimination and inequality, and using their privilege to amplify the voices of any marginalized individual.
Mm-hmm. And I would just chime in again for people identifying men on sets to, again, not assume that someone is lesser. Ask someone to do the job that you're looking for, and to continue to be an ally and to give out the names of other women that you think are, again, a great asset to a set. It's just nice to have when people give other people the opportunity to be in the same place. And then I would also just remind people too that there are certain different ways of doing things, and to continue as women to be open and honest when you don't know how to do something. I know sometimes we need to be here, we need to be here. Oh, I know how to use capture, I know how to do this. And just remember that people will respect you when you ask for questions. I said, of course, be organized and perfect at first, which you do need to be when you are supplying stuff to a client. But at different levels, you still want to be open, honest, and ask questions. Don't look to hurt yourself or your body or go above your ability to physically show that you can be just as tough as a guy. There are amazing assets that you have of being detail oriented or quick on your toes, seeing stuff ahead of time. Not everything has to be brute strength. So
thank you for sharing that. And I hope people will listen to that. And just the last question before we say goodbye today, for all those women and non-binary people out there who are starting their careers in photography, maybe not only as a photographer, maybe as a digitech or as a photo assistant or as a producer, what would you tell them to encourage them to follow on with this career?
Oh, definitely. I say go on and do it. I was sick of people saying, it's hard, you're only female. Go in full heart, do what you love. I hear enough people that don't like what they do. If you are able to find something that you love, go for it. Be open and find ways to find your space in this atmosphere. I went and came in here thinking I was going to be a fashion photographer, everything. I'm still here because I was open and honest to what was available and continued to move forward in the career that I love. And it's pushed me into teching, it's pushed me into retouching and shooting. And I'm extremely happy because I just stayed open and saw what was available and worked with my strengths instead of focusing on what I couldn't or other people said I couldn't do.
What about you, Emily? What would you say to people who are starting now?
I would say, and I this is what I tell myself too every day, but don't let confidence or your lack of confidence potentially or other people doubting your ability ever get in the way of what you want to do. You're capable of whatever you allow yourself to be capable of. Support others and you will be supported. Also be bold, be fierce, be kind, and speak about both yourself and your work with respect. And finally, don't let anyone take advantage of you, because at every single turn, there's going to be someone trying to take advantage of you. So be aware of that and stand up for yourself.
Tracey, any closing words?
I would advise you to embrace your unique perspective and your voice in this industry. You have great ideas, a unique insight, and just fresh perspective that no one else has. So don't be afraid to use that and be authentic to who you are. And also surround yourself with mentors and peers who are only going to support and uplift you, because you need to form your community. So you need people that you can look up to, but also look across to, and everyone is there supporting each other.
Thank you for that. And thank you for your insights and for being here today, sharing your experiences. I think this is so valuable. So thank you for joining again. Thanks to everybody who joined and watched all the way, even despite the technical difficulties. We appreciate you being here and tuning in to discuss these matters with us. And hopefully we can do this in the future. We'd love to have you all here again. So I'm going to share our name tags once again in case somebody wants to look you up. So Emily, Tracey, Lori, it has been so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.